What's up, guys? Welcome into another episode of the Wolverine Live Q&A show. Appreciate everybody that's already gotten their questions in. We'll be talking about Michigan's recruiting momentum, commitment yesterday, maybe a commitment today. We'll be talking about that. I'm sure you guys have questions about the settlement. Before we get into today's questions, make sure to like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel for free, get notifications every time we drop new videos. Also, liking this helps us get in front of other Michigan fans. And now is the perfect time to take advantage of the Wolverine.com special offer. Use the promo code UM1, that's $1 for 2 months over at the Wolverine.com. Get exclusive insider information on everything Michigan recruiting, the team, transfer portal, and much more. Plus, you get to be part of a great message board community. Things are changing minute by minute. It's official visit season, so stay up to date. Even right now, Michigan appeared to be on the verge of getting a flip, and the situation is very interesting. We have all the details over at the Wolverine.com. Alistair Vallejo is set to make a decision here at 7:30 Eastern. We had a ton of intel on that last night into this morning, so make sure to take advantage of that UM1 offer code over at the Wolverine.com. Okay, let's go ahead and dive into y'all's questions. They will be answered in the order in which they came. We are going to try to speed through everything. We'll probably cut the show a little short as we prepare for the Alistair Vallejo announcement ceremony. So let's get into the questions. If you want to jump the line, make sure to leave a super chat. Okay, customer service says, I vote to have EJ Holland to be the new president of college athletics when the NCAA is gone. I will be retired at that point. Customer service says, I think Savion Hyder should do his commitment on your recruiting show. Take that, Sam Webb. I probably won't do a exclusive live show. The plan is for Hyder to make a decision at his school or have a ceremony, but I will be there to live stream it if we have a good feeling about Michigan. Hyder plans to release a commitment date shortly after he makes all of his official visits. Obviously, he's at Michigan this weekend. He'll end with Tennessee, and then he'll be looking to announce that commitment date after those OVs. Customer service says, did Michigan really move the needle with Felix Ojo? We need another Nigerian nightmare to team up with Andrew Babalola. Rate the high-low odds of all the visitors this past weekend. With Babalola, I think Michigan made a big move there. I think Michigan is safely in his top 5, if not top 3. I think Texas is going to be hard to beat in this recruitment. I think Ohio State is right up there. Florida's still trying hard, but I would probably put Michigan ahead of Florida and right up there with Texas and Ohio State. But I think Texas has put together a really strong package for him. They're taking care of him on the business side. And that's not to say that Michigan isn't. I think Michigan obviously has completely flipped their NIL approach here recently, especially with the settlement passing this weekend. They started talking numbers, and, that's something that's certainly appealing to Ojo. Another interesting note on the Ojo visit is his player host was actually Ty Haywood, who is a fellow Dallas-Fort Worth area native. Everybody should remember that Haywood got a big NIL package from Michigan last year. They were able to steal him from childhood favorite Alabama and pull him away or pull him out of DFW. Could Michigan do the same with Ojo? It's possible. Texas has been the favorite. He's from DFW. He could get a big, significant NIL package from Michigan as well. So, I definitely wouldn't rule Ojo out. I think he's the guy, when it comes to the tackle board. I know we talk a lot about Malachi Lee, and he's certainly a priority, but Ojo is that elite 5-star level tackle. So, again, Texas will be hard to beat. I've heard they're, doing whatever they can from a financial standpoint to keep him home, but Michigan certainly made a move this weekend and is now, open for business. Customer service says, what are the high-low odds of landing the visitors on the upcoming weekend's OV? On this upcoming OV weekend. I think they're in a really good spot for Jordan Deck. He rescheduled his visit. It was originally supposed to be for May 30th, and now it's this weekend. I think Michigan can beat out Baylor in that recruitment. I think they're, obviously in a really good spot for Savion Hyder. I think that they're in a really good spot for Travis Johnson. I think they lead for Andre Clark. I think they lead for Kenneth Goodwin. I think they're right up there for Ben Boulware. So yeah, those are some of the guys that come to mind. Customer service says if there was one recruit that wasn't currently on Michigan's radar, you'd be most excited about if Michigan got them. Who would that be? If Michigan doesn't get Felix Ojo, and it's probably a little too late at this point, but I'd love to see them put together some type of big financial package for Emmanuel Iheanacho, who is also a 5-star tackle. Zachary Pizzo says, how are we feeling about Trent Henderson? I think Michigan did a really nice job this weekend. I would say Michigan remains a dark horse. I still think it's going to be tough to pull him out of the Gulf Coast. LSU and Florida continue to have the buzz there. Auburn is still very involved in his recruitment, but I think Michigan did, a really nice job. I think the longer it goes, probably the better for Michigan. Zachary Pizzo says, can you go into what happened with Jake Krull? I know you said that ship has sailed, but wonder what it went into that. I think, a combination of factors. One, Michigan obviously wasn't talking NIL at all to the first few months of this calendar year, the first several months of this calendar year. But on top of that, they offered Krull, and then contact kind of fell off, and he didn't really feel like a top priority. Then they went back in on him, and it just it didn't really ever seem to work out with him. Zachary Pizzo says, can you explain what Michigan's house settlement strategy means? If all schools now have a $20 million budget plus NIL, what has changed? Yeah, so that is a great question, and I have a great Q&A up on the Wolverine.com with On3 insider Pete Nakos, who answers basically every question you can think of when it comes to the settlement and how it will affect, Michigan from a roster retention, portal, and recruiting standpoint. But in short, yes, all schools have a $20 million budget. 13 to 16 million will be dedicated to the roster or to football. When it comes to roster retention, Michigan will use that rev share money to pay the roster and also to recruit out of the portal. On top of that, Michigan will have NIL deals for players on the team where they can earn extra money. Anything above $600 has to go through a clearinghouse. There will certainly be lawsuits against that. But that's kind of where things stand with guys in the portal, guys on the roster. They'll be paid out of that rev share. When it comes to recruiting, the rev share will also contribute to the recruitment of non-elite guys. They could still be priority targets, but they're not necessarily the guys that are commanding NIL. Guys like, the Jalen Piles, Tariq Boney's, guys that are committed, that bought into Michigan for more than NIL even before the settlement happened. They'll be taken care of with rev share. And Sean McGee, who obviously has an NFL background, can balance the cap number and knows how to distribute and allocate money. In terms of big recruitments, the collective will have to be involved, as well as maybe outside entities like, a Larry Ellison. The collective cannot, so there is no $20 million budget plus NIL. Like I said, 13 to 16 million will be dedicated to football, and the collective cannot provide additional NIL just because, all those deals that are separate, like, Jordan Marshall signs a deal with a car dealership, or if Bryce Underwood wants to do a Nike commercial, whatever the case is, those deals have to be approved through the clearinghouse. There isn't just unlimited NIL money coming in from donors and collectives for the roster. Where that's different with recruiting is recruits are not enrolled. They are not part of the NCAA right now. So each state's commission has laws on NIL. So if your state allows NIL, for example, I'm in Virginia, they allow NIL. Some of you guys are in Michigan, it's currently under review and they do not allow NIL. But if there's a 5-star in Virginia that Michigan wants to invest in and pay ahead of time, they can. They can front load that. They can pay this 5-star, close to $1 million, and divide it up by monthly payments until the 5-star enrolls, and then from there he'll be part of the rev share agreement. But again, they can just front load. They can pay recruits however much they want to pay them. Obviously, the risk there is somebody else comes in with an even bigger offer, and you have to include language in that contract to pay back money. But I think that for the most part, if these recruits are signing deals ahead of time, they're more likely to stick. So, Michigan's collective will be used for those elite recruitments. Everything else will fall under the rev share. And, I think guys on the roster will make more money down the line once the clearinghouse gets sued, which will happen. Okay. Zachary Pizzo says, are you feeling good about Kari Adams? Yeah, I feel good about Kari Adams. I think this is a recruitment Michigan can win. I think this is a Lamar Morgan type of recruitment where he comes from behind and builds momentum and beats out other teams. I mentioned this could be Shamari Earls-esque. Even if Michigan doesn't win the first time, I could see them winning in later in the cycle just because they got a bit of a late start. Think Jordan Young, think Shamari Earls. I mean, that's the type of recruitment the Kari Adams recruitment is. So I could easily see Michigan winning out at some point this cycle, and he would obviously be a massive land. Very much, am high on Kari Adams. Think he's a 5-star level player. Ryan said, Wilfong reported Savion Hyder's best relationship was with Ohio State, but this is a Tennessee-Michigan battle, which would indicate it's an NIL recruitment. You think we will outbid Tennessee? I think NIL is a major factor for Savion Hyder, but I wouldn't say that Ohio State has the best relationship with him. I definitely would not agree with that. Tony Alford has been recruiting him longer than Carlos Loughlin. He has a great relationship, not just with Hyder and his parents, but also with his agent. I think that Tony Alford has done everything right from a relationship building standpoint. I think it would be a disservice to Alford to say he doesn't have the best relationship with Hyder and everybody around him. With that said, Michigan is going to have to be extra competitive, on the NIL front with Savion. Tennessee is being ultra competitive. They're doing everything they can to land Hyder. So those business talks will be very, very key this weekend. Ryan says, give your scouting report on Mikhail Blade. Good to finally get a win over Notre Dame. Yeah, great to get a win over Notre Dame. You love to see it. When you look at Blade, he's listed at 6'5", probably closer to 6'4", 255 pounds. I talked to his dad earlier. He told me he's at 250. He has a really interesting frame. I think the thing with Mikhail Blade is if you keep him at edge, he's kind of what Esposito has been recruiting here lately at the position, kind of Nate Marshall-esque, but not as overly athletic or as explosive as Marshall. I would say, I have Blade ranked in the 200 to 250 range. So he has decent length for a guy who's in that 6'4" range. He's a good athlete. He has good explosiveness. He's just not at that elite level at any of those traits. But what I find really intriguing about Mikhail Blade is the fact that he could just add a bunch of weight and be an actual hand-in-the-dirt defensive lineman, which is something that Michigan talked to him about and was honest about. Lou Esposito told him, hey, we don't know what your frame's going to look like. You could add 30 pounds. You could be 285. You could be a 4-eye. You could, slide inside and be a 3. Like, there's a lot of ways Mikhail Blade's body could go at the next level. So I think he's an intriguing, versatile piece that I wouldn't bank on just being a true edge. He could very well, be like Chris Jenkins in the sense that Jenkins played edge at the high school level and was, listed as an edge by the recruiting services. And he added a ton of weight and was an athletic 4-eye. Mikhail Blade could follow a similar path. Jenkins was lighter than Blade was, But, just saying similar path in the sense of adding, 30, 40 pounds. Obviously, Jenkins added more, but adding 30, 40 pounds, being an edge at the high school level, and then moving into that 4I, 3 interior defensive line role. So I think that could be the future for Mikhail Blade. The other question mark with Blade is he had a torn ACL last year, so he didn't play. So I think a lot of how I feel about Blade and the scouting report I give on Blade will be tied to how he comes back from the torn ACL and performs as a senior. Customer service says, remember customer service, you've asked your 4 questions. If you ask more than 4 questions, you have to leave a super chat. So, we're going to skip customer services questions. Please leave a super chat if you ask more than 4. Ryan says, what's the skinny on Brady Marchese? It says he's committed to Georgia, but has OV set up with 3 mid-ACC schools. How good is he? Well, a lot going on with Brady today. It looked like he was trending to flip to Michigan a couple of hours ago, but he has not officially committed. That is why you have not seen Sharon Moore tweet out the eyeball emoji. So he's not committed. He hasn't flipped behind the scenes or anything like that. Michigan still feels good about its standing with him, but there's still a little work to do. Georgia wants to keep him. He canceled his OV to Florida, but his official visit to South Carolina is still on as of right now. So I think Michigan is still a big threat to flip him, but we have to pump the brakes a little bit here. Just a lot of weird stuff going on behind the scene. Georgia reporters are saying that this is an NIL recruitment. Look, I'm never shy about saying this is an NIL recruitment. We just talked about Savion Hyder having NIL as a big factor. This is not an NIL recruitment. Michigan's collective, I just spent that whole soliloquy talking about Michigan and how they're going to approach recruiting, and collectives are going to be involved with elite recruits. This is not a collective recruitment. This is not an NIL recruitment. Michigan would love to flip Brady. They're still in a good spot to flip Brady, but this is not one that they're throwing a massive bag at Brady like Georgia's reporting. Get out of here with that. Like, that's not happening. In terms of how good he is, he has pretty good track times. Michigan hasn't landed a lot of receivers that have ran a sub 11 100 meter. He did this offseason, so he would bring speed. He's kind of built like Andrew Marsh. He can play inside and outside. Not as physical as Marsh, but still does play with some physicality, faster than Marsh, but I would say Marsh was a better prospect overall. Tyson Smith says, are we getting Hyder? Yeah, I think a lot, again, just depends on how business talks go this weekend, how his official goes to Tennessee. But Michigan is still right up there. I've been saying it's Michigan and Tennessee for several weeks now, if not months now. I mean, I didn't really buy into the Ohio State hype. So I still think Michigan has as good of a chance, as good of a chance as they did when they were considered, the outright leader. I don't think a whole lot's changed with Hyder other than Tennessee has really ramped up its efforts. But again, it's really going to depend on these business talks the next couple of weeks. Tyson Smith says, are we getting Vallejo? I didn't put in a prediction for Vallejo since, this kind of happened over the last 24 hours and he has a decision set. So like for Mikhail Blade, right? I put in a prediction yesterday, but I didn't know he was going to just set an announcement for his Instagram live. Vallejo already had this announcement set for a while. So didn't put in a prediction, but I do, if I had to put one in, I'd put one in for Michigan. I feel like the Wolverines can win this one out and beat Notre Dame for the second straight day. Tyson Smith says, what's your ranking for Blade? I kind of answered that earlier. I would say top 200 to 250. Tyson Smith says, did you get a Nintendo Switch 2 yet? No, I was online today looking at every store near me and they're all sold out. I went to Target the first day. They were sold out. So, if you can scalp one for me, I'll take it. Butter XO says, was Sharon Moore's tweet about Vallejo or the wide receiver from Georgia? It was not about the wide receiver from Georgia. Zion Robinson's rating is so low on On3. Any insight onto that? Yeah, Zion fantastic athlete, great track times, terrific jumper as well. Not just, sprinter. He's a great jumper too, which means he has insane athletic ability. Terrific basketball player. I mean, could just be an absolute boom at the next level, but still very raw as an actual receiver, as an actual route runner. He's a guy that would need to be developed. Tom H says, I continue to struggle with my own recruiting. Everyone's getting mad at me. I can get people to visit my company. I just can't get anyone special to sign. Should I go into franchising? Yes, Tom, you should go into franchising. Now is the perfect time to talk about tonight's sponsor, and that's Andy Luedecke with My Perfect Franchise. You know what? Are you looking for a change in your life, just like Tom was? Yeah, you definitely should get into franchising. You can take your career into your own hands. Even if you're just already an experienced entrepreneur and you're wanting to diversify, Andy Luedecke can help. Andy is a huge college sports fan and franchise veteran, having owned multiple franchises and businesses. Using his expertise, he helps others find their American dream through a very thorough consultation and evaluation process. Call Andy, put your life and career in your own hands. Best of all, his services are 100% free to you. So what do you have to lose? Franchising is the new wave, and Andy's always available. You can email him at andy@myperfectfranchise.net. You can set up a Zoom meeting with him. You can call him at 404-973-9901. All right, guys, we are running a little bit low on time. So remember, if you have super chats, get those in. D. Spencer says, I really enjoyed Vallejo's tape and I'm very hard to please. Is he, in your opinion, underrated? Yeah, he's definitely underrated. The reason for Vallejo being underrated is because he plays at Liberty Hill, which is about 40 miles north of Austin. Liberty Hill was a smaller school when I was growing up, and they recently reclassed up. So they're playing in a classification above. That means his competition has gotten a little better. It's not the greatest competition in the state of Texas. It's not, Dallas or Houston area 6A ball. But it's decent. It's not bad competition. It's not like Jalen Pyle plays against bad competition. It's not really that type of competition. So, I mean, he still plays in the 5A class. And the Austin area has some decent teams as well. But Liberty Hill rarely produces Division I level talent, let alone Power 4 level talent. So I just really don't think Vallejo has gotten a lot of eyes on him. He doesn't do a lot of the camp circuit either. I don't think any national guys have been out to Liberty Hill. So yeah, I don't think he's been seen. For me, I would start off Vallejo as a low 4-star. I really like his tape as well. I could easily fall in love with him like I did with Mason Graham. This is exactly what I did with Graham too. I'm not saying Vallejo will be Graham. Graham's like 101. But when Graham was a recruit and Courtney Morgan first offered him and he was committed to Boise State, I said, this guy's tape's great. I'll start him off as a low 4-star. Then I went out to see him. And obviously, by the end of the cycle, I had him ranked top 100. So we'll see where, or how Vallejo looks once I get a chance to go back home and see him. We have a super chat from Michelle Wallace. They say Michigan Wolverines on commented, who do you think it is? I think I'm sorry, Michelle. I don't know if you are a man or a woman. If you could clarify, you comment all the time. I'm not even trying to be funny. I really don't know if it's Michelle or Michelle, but I appreciate your super chat. I don't know really what this means other than, maybe the person means, did Michigan get a recent commit? And if I were to place a guess, it would be Alistair Vallejo. I think Michigan can beat out Notre Dame here. Okay, I completely lost my place. Megan, can you help out? Okay, any news with Salisi Moa or Kelvin Obot? Yeah, they still haven't taken their official visit yet. So I think we'll know a lot more after they do. I think Michigan is probably in that, top 4 for MOA. I think they're in the top 3 for OBOT, but a lot will depend on the officials. Yes, shoving Notre Dame in a locker back-to-back days. It will be fantastic to see if Vallejo sides with Michigan. Tom H says, Notre Dame fans, Bryce Marich's voice or nails on a chalkboard. What's the best? I've only talked to Bryce Marich a handful of times, so I know I don't really know what his voice sounds like. I know it's a little squeaky. Nails on a chalkboard. Who actually has chalkboards? I went to school, like elementary school, in the late 90s and early 2000s, and we didn't even have chalkboards. Like, they were already putting in those those weird electronic things that you would write on anyway. I don't even think I've ever heard nails on a chalkboard. So the easy answer here is Notre Dame fans, because they're weirdos. Dave's here says, we got buzz now. Just last week you said there was no buzz. Yeah, there wasn't. Now there is. Why? Because the settlement passed and Michigan had been waiting on that. And now they're talking numbers. They're talking about rev share. They're talking about outside NIL. And that's obviously giving them a boost. On top of that, it is official visit season. So naturally, you're going to get more buzz here as these more loaded weekends heat up. June 13th this weekend is a big one. June 20th is Victor's weekend. So I think everything has always been there for Michigan to recruit at a top 10 level, which they did late last cycle. It was more so their approach to NIL and the settlement. But now that has passed, obviously, Michigan's open for business on the recruiting trail. Ben Rex says, how do you see the linebacker board shaking out? A lot of visitors last weekend and this weekend. Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, if you were to tell me to pick 3, I think that Michigan, can get its top level guy in Nick Abrams. I think the visit went really well this past weekend, and I think they can fill out the rest of the class with Kenneth Goodwin and Calvin Thomas. I think, that's a very realistic linebacker class. John A. Schultz says, how fun will it be to dunk on Notre Dame if Vallejo commits? Yesterday, they all said Blade wasn't good since they thought they were about to get Vallejo. Oh, it'd be fantastic. Mike Anders. Oh, we have another super chat. It is Michelle Wallace, 199 commitment watch. Yeah, like I said, I do think Michigan's in a great spot here for Alistair Vallejo. All right, let's go rapid fire because we are about to get into the Vallejo announcement ceremony. Mike Anderson says, how big of a boy are you? I am 6 foot 180. I gained 5 pounds, sadly. David Ross says, can you explain how the salary cap coming out of the House settlement would work? Would that limit how much money players can make, or can schools offer sponsorship deals in addition to that? Yeah, I touched on that earlier. Schools can offer, or collectives can offer, sponsorship deals on top of the salary cap, but it has to go through a clearinghouse if it's more than $600. Let's see. Michelle Wallace says, do you see any wide receivers committing to the Michigan Wolverines? I think Michigan's in a great spot with Travis Johnson going into the weekend. I think they're in a great spot with Zion Robinson. And they are still, right there to flip Brady Marquez from Georgia. Johnny Schultz says, is Mikhail Blade a Jalen Williams type of prospect then if he could end up on the edge 4-3 technique? Yeah, not as tall, but yes, sort of. Nick Wenzel says recruiting is picking up, but what about some top 100 players? I think those guys take a little bit of time, but I think you'll see Michigan land some. Jeremy Knox says final prediction for Vallejo, Michigan. With losing running back to ND, we have to line Hyder. Yes. What's your ranking for Vallejo? Low 4-star until I see him in person. Do you think Michigan still leads for Andre Clark? Yes. How would you compare Vallejo to Michigan's defensive tackle takes in 24 and 25? I think Vallejo has a lot of upside. I think he could finish higher than the guys they got last cycle. EJ, who's going to be the next corner to commit to Michigan? Give me an expert, educated guess. I think Andre Clark is definitely a candidate this weekend. Looks like Brady is sticking with Georgia per Wilfong. Not yet. We just have to wait. EJ's school had electronic chalkboards. Is he some kind of Nepo baby? No, I think they gave it out to the poor and unfortunate, actually, for some reason. Yeah, I went to a poor school. Rat videos. Have you walked your cat today? It's been a busy 24 hours. No, I have to do that after this announcement ceremony. So appreciate it, guys. Make sure to tune into that Alistair Vallejo ceremony. And as always, like this video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, get notifications every time we drop new videos. We had one last question come in. Any shot with Calvin Russell still working there? They are still working. They're trying to get him in for an OV, but kind of wait and see. I think that one will be tough. But yeah, appreciate it, guys. Make sure to subscribe to the Wolverine.com. Use that promo code UM1. That's $1 for 2 months. I'll see y'all next week.